struggle to begin. We'll never cease. Sound a blast for freedom, boys, and send it far and wide. March along to victory, for God is on our side. While the voice of nature thunders o'er the rising tide, God made the land for the people. The land, was God who gave the land. The land, the ground on which we stand. Why should we be beggars with the ballot in our hand? God gave the land to the people. The shout is swelling from the east and from the west. Why should we beg work and let the landlord take the best? Make them pay their taxes, for the land will rest the rest. The land was meant for the people. The land.
Hello.
So, with the upcoming election, I feel like it's only, fair for both candidates at this point that we ask a few questions regarding how they will provide a brighter future for the nation. I will be doing the same with Mr. Moreno from the Libertarian Party tomorrow. So let's start with, what do you think you can offer to Crane a go?
Well, of course, we want to offer a fresh government that's not the same as the previous government and the previous president, I believe. We also hope our policies reflect that we want to listen to the people and enact what they want. And that's what we feel we can really bring.
Yeah, because obviously, the government has to reflect the views of the people, because at the end of the day, if you are elected, you have to represent what the people want rather than to fund your own agenda, which is what your manifesto proposed. You proposed, an equal opportunity for all citizens, no matter how they identify, their race, etc. And as we've seen in the opinion polls that were released earlier today, I believe, Ms. Moreno's public opinion dropped quite drastically and then kind of recovered, whereas you've seemed to have stayed quite stable in the polls, and still have a very clear lead. However, it's not Friday yet, so we're unsure on how the election will play out, and the exit poll, the final poll, can't be released until all the votes have been, until voting closes. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yes, and of course, that final poll is the only one that really matters.
Yeah, and of course, the poll that matters the most would obviously be the poll that the people voted for. My next question is, what policies that your party has put forward are you most enthusiastic about?
Well, firstly, of course, is our promise to write a new constitution, a formal constitution, which should secure said citizens' rights, whoever they are, wherever they're from, wherever they're currently residing. if they're a citizen, we want to secure their rights. Secondly, of course, is to hold elections for a new parliament so that the people can better be representative. Of course, we are a democratic party, the Democratic Equality Party, and therefore democracy and people being represented, very, very important. And then finally is creating really a good coalition with other nations. We are an international party, so creating good relations is one of our key foundation points as well.
Well, obviously, having a strong government is a big thing, and we've been in talks ever since the first poll was released and you declared that you were going to be running for office. We've been in talks about forming some kind of Commonwealth organisation between other micronations, specifically within the British Isles, as, of course, it's small territory, and building an alliance for trade, intertwined kind of laws and ruling is obviously a big step up from pure independence, because every micronation, as I believe, has the same goal of making a point to macronations that we exist and we want to run things differently, as we're unsatisfied with the way that people are running theirs. And I believe mainly people, there are three types of micronations. Simulationists, which aren't really welcomed in the community for good reason. Then there's, of course, the parody micronations, such as, for example, the most popular one being Molossia, as I believe is considered a parody. And, the kind of real deal micronation that kind of run the nation as a political project, which is what Cranigo is. Ever since I ascended to the throne, since the government style was changed last month, I've been seeking to form a firm parliament with pure democracy and representation of the people, and I've been desperately trying to write a constitution that protects the rights of my citizens.
Yes, well, I've had experience in writing constitutions. I've aided some other nations in trying to create their own constitutions. And on the topic of the Commonwealth, I have been in talks with two other nations, the oligarchy of Archilian, I believe it is, and another nation, which I can't remember the name of my head, but both of which seem relatively interested in forming some kind of coalition. So that would be good if we were able to get into power. And of course, we would need to establish the parliament that would then enable us to do all of that. And people willing, be able to enact our manifesto.
Indeed. I've also been in talks with another kingdom in the who are within America, the kingdom of, I believe it's pronounced Tiarabran, which are about the same size as us regarding, I guess, influence in the micronational community, who seem very keen on helping us form the Commonwealth, even though they are transatlantic to us at this point. We want to form as many strong alliances with other micronations as we can. And I believe the United use of has definitely provided a great platform for other micronations to come together and collaborate on growth, as well as just providing a nice social space for leaders and representatives to, communicate. And Cranigo, ever since it was founded, has always been a member of USOV, and I have to give praise to its leader, Daniel Morris, or Dan Morris, for creating a kind of community rather than an official organisation. And of course, an official organisation is all well and good, but without community, communication, and friendship, it would cease to exist. So I'm praising Mr. Morris for that, which kind of leads on to my next question. How will you help Cranigo thrive?
Well, hopefully through our policies, and through attempting to build that sense of community by doing exactly what the people want, enacting the will of the people. whatever that may be. And that's how we can help this nation to truly thrive, we feel.
Yes, because obviously we are still quite a small nation, but as soon as we get a constitution and a functioning parliament and a strong leader, as you know, you and Mr. Moreno have both put forward as, you know, very strong candidates. Once you are both of course you're running against each other, but you both give the Cranigan citizens a decent option, no matter who they vote for, because they're both strong leaders with good manifestos and good policies. With our citizens, obviously, the main goal of this entire election is to unite the nation and be able to create, you know, a strong constitution that they can abide by and live by and be proud to call themselves a Cranigan. So, obviously, your manifesto explicitly states that you will form a strong constitution and parliament, of course, within my jurisdiction. So, speaking of opponents, my final question is: what do you offer in comparison to your opponents? The only current opponent being Mr. Moreno of the Libertarian Party.
Well, we offer, of course, all of our policies. I don't think he's put forward anything saying about a constitution in his manifesto or any of his points, including his recent broadcast. I don't believe, I may be mistaken, but I don't believe hearing anything about that or anything about a parliament, which I think is a shame, because both are things that are needed and would be a great help to the nation. Also, we feel after watching the recent broadcast that it seemed dragged out in some ways, which is unfortunate and kind of unorganized. But at the same time, we respect our opponents, especially since they've recently had controversy about their support for white nationalism. Yeah, isn't such a good thing and can lead to divides and lack of unity and community and can damage those things. So we hope that obviously the rumours are not true, especially if they were to be elected. And we do feel that the Libertarian Party is good, just maybe not for Crane.
Since the allegations did come out after after I was pressured by, of course, Pressure Group to kind of condemn the allegations and request him to make a formal statement refuting it, otherwise he would be disqualified from the election. He has since stated that, of course, he doesn't support white nationalism or racial science, but of course that has already created quite a vote divide as it is, as his approval rating has dropped. Because obviously both of your approval ratings started on 100, with a kind of clear 50-50 divide between the parties. However, since the allegations came out, the polling has suggested a very clear lead for the DEP, and I'm not allowed to endorse a candidate at the moment, until obviously the election is over, as I'll be seen to, as I am a figure of authority, I basically run the country. I am not allowed, I'd be seen as, you know, kind of telling people who to vote for. However, that has definitely had a very negative impact on his campaign as a whole, and that is unfortunate, because me and Mr. Moreno did run the country. He did run cooperatively with me, as he used to be the vice president when I was the president before the government style changed, which is, back on your point, I believe that he's in some way stuck in the past and he's not kind of caught up with the new style of government, and he doesn't understand that, you know, we're not running things as a presidential democracy anymore. It's now a parliamentary democracy with a monarch as the head of state, and this tradition will run for the foreseeable future of Cranigo from now on. And I believe if he is to try and win this election with only a few days left now, he has to update or even write a manifesto stating his views and his policies clearly, as was in your manifesto, which was released as soon as you started to run for Prime Minister. And of of course, the Democratic Equality Party is expanded into other micronations for election. I believe your colleague is running in Haston this month, which is obviously a great thing for your party. And if you do end up becoming Prime Minister and he is the head of state for Haston, how I pronounce it, we could easily form a strong alliance between the nations. And it just comes back to my first point, democracy and the will of the people. The people clearly want a strong country and something to be patriotic and proud about, and I believe Cranego can provide that with a strong leader alongside a strong Prime Minister, which is hopefully what me and the future Prime Minister will provide. But according to the polls, at the moment, it seems that Mr. Moreno is going to be left in the dust, and that is an unfortunate thing, as he's definitely served quite well for this country in the past. But I believe, whatever the outcome, Cranego has a bright future and will definitely be a more united nation than it is currently, because, you know, we're kind of all over the place at the moment with laws and acts and the lack of a constitutional parliament and no real voice to represent the people other than myself, which, you know, I'm supposed to be impartial. So, hopefully, after this interview and the upcoming interview with the Libertarian Party, it will allow the people of Cranego to make a choice on who they want as a Prime Minister and to basically run the country alongside me.
Yes, and it would be very great to be said Prime Minister that will be working strongly with you. And some of the things you previously said, I hate to repeat myself, but it brings me back onto my first point of we want to offer a fresh government that's looking to the future, not dwelling the past, which we feel is very important to bringing strength and unity, and to clear up something about the fact that one of my colleagues of this party is running in another nation. That does not mean that we would push for a complete merger of the two nations and destroy the sovereignty of this kingdom. Instead, we would look for unity and possibly the joining of said coalition, or at least some kind of alliance.
Which is what the Commonwealth of Cranego would hopefully provide if it does come to being conceived. So, you know, creating... What I understood from your manifesto was a strong message of unity over hatred and kind of discrimination, and, you know, creating a strong nation that people can be proud to say, I'm a Cranegan. And that's what I got from the manifesto. And I'm sure that's what a lot of others got from said manifesto. And we've already had, I believe, from neighbouring nations or nations that we are allied with, we've had strong support for the DEP because I believe mostly micronations around the globe and our own citizens want change in the community, and that's hopefully what you would provide if you became Prime Minister.
I certainly hope so, and that's one of the great things about an international party, is that we can have representatives in all different nations, and of course we speak for the people of those nations, create a sense of unity, community.
In Mr. Moreno's party election broadcast, as you may know, he has promoted creating a big digital presence for Cranego. Would, in your kind of manifesto, you didn't mention creating any kind of digital presence. However, I'd like to hear your views on kind of expanding Cranego in the kind of digital space, you know, possibility of creating cryptocurrency for, you know, purchasing of items within Cranego, a strong website, easily accessible citizenship, laws, acts, general legal information for citizens. And, you know, it's all about creating ease for said citizens, and hopefully that is what you will strive to provide for my people.
most certainly. And the reason that's not brought up so much in our manifesto is because our manifesto focused more on what I would attempt to do as Prime Minister in order to get this nation continuing to expand, in order to provide a said constitution and parliament. But when it comes to after the parliament has been brought in through the constitution, any members of the DEP that run as MPs, we would look at more of a digital presence. We would campaign for them. So whilst my campaign for Prime Minister has been more of a what I would do to create constitution and parliament and the unity.
I would say the kind of electorate system we would go for would be a separate election for Prime Minister and members of Parliament, basically allowing... So if we compare this to the UK's system of election, we would say local elections and the general election. The general election would be strictly for some kind of Prime Minister, and the local elections would become elections for those who want to represent them in Parliament. Having a balanced Parliament is obviously a great thing, but having a strong majority is an even better thing. And ever since you applied and made the application to run for PM, I have seen nothing but dignity, determination, and respect for your campaign, and this kind of striving for a better future for my country and for my people. And obviously I have to admire that, even if you do not gain success in this election. And according to the polls, it appears you probably will.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is, of course, the aim, to win the election and to be able to do what's best for the nation. And bringing back to the elections, we also agree that the formation of a parliament, you can vote for a prime minister that is a member of a different party to your MP. Your member of parliament that you elect could be the opposition, but you just like the prime minister. We think that's good because then the people can be represented for their constituencies, but still vote for the prime minister they think's right.
Because, of course, for the prime ministerial elections, the party would have to select a candidate normally, but this is the first of its kind, so, there's been a lot of forming emerging parties over this week, and I'd like to officially announce now that as of tomorrow, applications for entering the prime ministerial race will be closing. So if you do intend on running to be Prime Minister of Crenego, you should probably do it either tonight or tomorrow morning, as they will be officially closed tomorrow to allow the electorate time to create a database of voters. And, upon whoever wins the election, there will definitely be an option to register your support officially for a specific party if that's what you'd wish to do. For example, let's say, I don't know, Joe Bloggs wants to register his support for the Libertarian Party. He can go to the Electoral Commission and state this, and it'll be on his voter record, which will be publicly available as, I believe, even though I'm not really officially allowed to have a say in government, that a small government with transparency is always going to be better than a big government that's closed and restrictive to the people. I think that's about all enough. I think that's about as much time as we can have at the present. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Lawson, for coming on to this interview, because obviously we have to inform the citizens of what's right for them and how. We don't want to tell them how to vote. We want to inform their choices. And, the KNB has gladly given me this opportunity to debate this with you. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best in the upcoming election on Friday.
Very much.
Thanks for tuning in. If you wouldn't mind standing for the national anthem, if you're able to stand, please remember to register to vote on closes Thursday. for the election on Friday. Polls open 7 a.m. More information will be disclosed on the day. Thank you for tuning in. This has been King Owen I with Dylan Lawson, leader of the Democratic Equality Party. Have a very good evening, and we'll see you soon.
The rising tide, God made the land for the people. The land, was God who gave the land. The land, the ground on which we stand. Why should we be beggars with the ballot in our hand? God gave the land to the people.